You never have to open the book. That's the most effective way to do it, because then the client knows that you know all this stuff. You're not using the book as a crutch. You actually know the data that you're putting in the book. And then you say to the client, look, all this data, you don't have to take any notes, it's right in the book. But you never open the book, and you never ask the client to turn the page. Once you ask the client to do something, turn a page, it's like work. It's like stress. He doesn't want it. He wants you to reduce his stress. Okay? So if you're making him go to a book and you're making him read something, I think that's counterproductive. You should know everything in your head. Know all the raw data. Just hand him the book and say, it's right there.
By the way, we do have materials that David Herman and David Acker prepared. I think they're going to be provided electronically after this, so you'll have them.
Robin, to your point too, I think professionals use materials as a crutch. You go, particularly if you're 50 years of age or older, you feel like you can't go to a pitch without something in your hand. I'm telling you, it's like a boomer or older thing. Get me for age discrimination, I don't care, I just see it all the time. And I think it deflects from you connecting with someone else as a human. It's also a little presumptuous, like, I know exactly what you need, I've prepared it, here it is. I would much rather on the first meeting, someone show up, be present, come with a couple really good questions that you're going to ask the prospect, and draw them out. Then, once you have the information that you need, go back and put together a strategy, and that allows you to follow up with something meaty. If you give everything on the first date, you got nothing left.
Well, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Saving some for later.
Yeah, give them a little sugar.
But it also depends on what stage this is. If they've done the research and you're one of the finalists, you want to, like, you've got to weigh in what your actual pitch is. Yeah, what the plan is.
Right.
Like, it just depends. Is that the meet and greet, or is that you've been narrowed down to 3 firms that are pitching? Then you've really got to the research.
David Acker, how about talking about the overall framework on a pitch?
Sure. Do we happen to have those slides up? Can we?
We do.
Can we look at them? I've prepared some materials.
Is this it?
So have I, but I don't need to refer to
I
it.
wasn't educated on how
You would see them.
Okay. Oh, okay, let's see. David's materials. Let's see.
Right click.
Right click. Someone else know how to use this?
I'll help you out.
Okay,
Sure. Okay, so here's another really good tip. Do not depend on technology for your presentation,
It's a really good tip.
because no matter how many times you've rehearsed it, it will not work when you need it.
But we didn't rehearse it, I have
That's
to
my
say.
thing on technology. Do not have a slideshow.
If you want to give me the clicker, I'll
Right.
take this.
It's like this.
Perfect.
Use the little wheel, for the reason it's up and down.
Sounds good.
There we
All
go.
right, so
All right.
there are 6 stages to a pitch conversation, or a sales conversation, generally speaking. And one of them actually tends to take place after the conversation, but again, we're just going to provide a framework. You are supposed to improvise within this framework. This is not a rigid 6-step process. But consider that most pitch meetings start with that rapport building, right? And this is the, oh, I noticed that you love miniatures, or oh, where are you from originally, or oh, wasn't traffic terrible? Just whatever it is that you use to kind of break the ice. And by the way, this stage, some people will tell you, don't spend any more than 3 minutes on it, right? You got to get to the meeting, and you want it. And I would actually advise against that. I would say feel into this. You may find some of the best pitch meetings never even got around to the whole thing. We just became great friends, and by the end of the meeting, they were like, well, you've got the account. I mean, you're great. Right? You get me, you clearly understand our business, you know what you're talking about, I like you. And it goes back to Jonathan's likability. So you may not get to all of these stages, but generally the rapport is always the first one. And I would say that rather than have this determination in your mind ahead of time that, oh, after 3 or 4 minutes I'm going to switch gears and go into the formal part, I would say take the prospect's lead on this. Follow the client's lead. Usually what will happen is, oh, are you originally from the area? And how long have you, where's your office? And oh, don't you work with so-and-so? And oh yeah, they're great. And then there'll be a slight lull, right? And that's basically them signaling, okay, I'm getting bored. Time to move on, right? Or they'll say, anyway, time is short, let's go ahead, right? They'll give you some sort of signal that says, okay, time to move to stage 2, establish relevance. But let that rapport piece really breathe, because again, that's where you're establishing your likability, establishing that connection. So then you move to establish relevance. Here's what we know. Here's where your research pays off, right? Here's what we know about your company, or here's what we know about your industry, or here's what we know about why we think we're here, or here's what we know about what we do and how we think we can help, okay? And so that moves into number 3, solutions. You have some solutions in mind, obviously, because this client is like so many other clients that you've worked with, or because this is the area of expertise that you have. But you gotta touch on here's what we know first, because that establishes the relevance, it establishes that you're not just some person who wandered in without a clue. So here's how we think we can help. You start to propose your solutions. Now you don't want to assume that your solutions are the right solutions, right? Because so far, you have not done anything that any of your competitors could also have done. All of your competitors are going to go through this stage too. They're going to do a little bit of research. They were also from Los Angeles and went to the same high school or whatever. They're going to find their commonality and they're going to establish some relevance, and they also have excellent solutions. So unless you're competing with incompetence, they can do what you can do all the way up to this stage. But here's where you start to differentiate yourself, where you start to ask questions. What did we miss? Where is it that you're looking for something that might be a little bit different? What have you not heard from the other people that you're talking to that we might be able to provide here? Right? Here's where you start to off-road a bit from the script and start to really get the meaningful information that's going to set you apart from others. So you're fielding reactions, concerns. Did we miss anything? You're really drawing them out, as Jonathan says. And then you summarize and establish follow-ups. This is toward the end of the meeting. So just to summarize, I understand that you want me to do this and deliver this, or before we move forward, you're going to look into that, and I'm going to follow up in a week. Does that all make sense? Where you got to crystallize that last piece, because a lot of times we end these meetings with, well, think it over. Let me know what you want to do, right? And that puts all of the onus on them, and it takes all the control away from you. It also doesn't provide any kind of expectation for what comes next. Now, the most important piece doesn't even really occur during the pitch. It's the follow-up. So let me draw your attention to a little bit of research. So according to BTI Consulting, for those of you who don't know BTI, they're one of the premier consulting firms that advise law firms. They did both studies in-house counsel and outside counsel. It takes an average of 14 touches, according to inside counsel, the buyer, before they will respond to a prospecting law firm. 14 touches, guys. We're not talking about your e-newsletter. Okay, touches are like meaningful interactions, a conversation of some sort, or some sort of exchange. Maybe it's email, that's fine, but a back and forth that is meaningful to them. And 90% of lawyers quit after the first unsuccessful attempt to connect with a prospect. You got a disconnect here, right? Oh, I don't want to be a bother. I sent them the one email and they didn't get back to me, so I guess they're not interested. No, you're 13 touches short of actually establishing a relationship and getting them to choose you. So the follow-up is really key. You've got to take a service-oriented approach. They can be professional or personal in nature, these touches. You don't want to automate this. You can't delegate it to your marketing department. You are establishing a relationship. You can't delegate that. And then your follow-ups can be things like, hey, they're starting to communicate that you're really invested in this relationship. You really want to be helpful. Hey, I saw this article you might find interesting. Hey, there's this conference I thought you might want to attend with me. Hey, there's the ball game. You call it phoniness, but I say we're just developing a relationship here. I'm sharing things with you that I'm excited about in the hopes that when the time is right, we're going to do business together. And by the way, they may have said no to the pitch, but you've got to ask yourself, do you want a transaction or do you want a relationship with a prospect here? You just want a transaction, then quit as soon as you hear no. If you want a relationship with a prospect, you keep it up, and it may take 2 years, but then when they have their next need, you are first in line. In fact, you may be the only one, because everybody else gave up after the first unsuccessful attempt. So this is sort of the framework to be thinking about. It's a long play, guys. I'm not here to tell you that you're going to get in there, get the business, and go home. But hopefully this gives you some idea of how to proceed.
Okay, I have a question for you. So after a pitch, I'll send an email, say, let's get together for lunch, or I'd like to talk further about this. And they say, thanks, we'll get back to you.
Great, I really look forward to hearing from you. I'll touch base in a couple of weeks to make sure that this hasn't fallen off your radar.
Okay.
Look, be polite and persistent. You've got to communicate. I'm not going away, okay, unless you tell me to go away. But I'm not just going to be flaky about this. After all, I am consistent, I am thorough, I am organized. I am not somebody who's going to give up when you hire me either, right? This is all part of what you're communicating.
Here's the other element to all of this. It's essentially dating. How you act dating is how they're going to generalize you will represent them once you've signed that engagement letter, if you are thorough and persistent and follow up, people generalize. That's how you're going to represent them. Either they want it or they don't. But we're all under the magnifying glass, and they want to see how you're going to react before you're on their dole.
David Herman, you want to talk about stages in the pitch? You should put up your materials. I'm not going to touch it.
I think that, all those are really, really good. One of the things that we try to do, and remember, we're not building a long-term relationship as investment bankers. We're in for 9 months, and we've got a half-life of 3 months, and they're bored of us and sick of us, want to get rid of us right away. No, just kidding. But we really have a 9-month lifespan, and that's it. We're like a moth or something. And so what we try to do, is, since we don't have a lot of time, is do something memorable. And memorable means that it could be counterintuitive to what the other investment bankers would say. And I can only tell you, I'll give you an example, that, and I'll give you an example from lawyers, it's even better. All lawyers, when they do mergers and acquisitions deals, talk about reps and warranties. Okay, I will tell you the clients don't care about reps and warranties. So a memorable lawyer would say to a client, don't worry about reps and warranties, it's irrelevant. I can handle it, and it's going to be easy, and we're just going to use insurance and get rid of it, and it's going to be a problem gone. That is memorable because what it does is it gets rid of all the other lawyers at once, because you've basically said whatever they said out the window. It doesn't make any difference. Okay? And at the same time, you've established yourself as someone that can solve a problem,